Super Techies, tech visionaries and their groundbreaking innovations. Next on Super Techies, you'll meet the man who invented the JavaScript programming language. He spent his early years at Silicon Graphics, creating new operating systems. Later, he was a superstar programmer, working at Netscape during the company's glory days. And now, he's the CTO at Mozilla, developing new technologies for the Firefox browser. Our guest sits down with ZDNet Editor-in-Chief Dan Farber and talks browser innovation, past and present. Super Techies, featuring Brendan Eich.
Brendan, thanks for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, you've been the CTO of Mozilla for several years now, but before that, you got your career started way back in your university days. So take us kind of through your evolution from there to here.
Sure. I have to say, dating myself, that I'm a child of the 70s. I was a math and science type student, but I didn't have a personal computer. At that time, it would have been an Apple II probably, and I think I tried scamming my parents into letting me get it, but they probably correctly thought I would play too many computer games and not do enough homework, so I never had a computer, even into university, where I was a physics major for 3 years. But I did get into computers they had in the computer lab, and I was a lab assistant. And so as I was studying physics, I was starting to program, and I realized I was good at it, and I liked it a lot.
What is it about programming that appealed to you?
It was the ability to use sort of the pure world of math or logic combined with practical engineering trade-offs to make something happen, to make a whole system come to life. I was doing little knockoffs of Atari games on very bad DEC graphics terminals. I was programming in Pascal, which was the common language for teaching. But I was seeing through to the system. I was seeing how the bits flew through the CPU, and I was interested in hardware.
Now, you got out of school and you ended up at Silicon Graphics, which at the time was really a major force in the industry.
It was. When I was at grad school still, I was looking at Unix workstations and how workstations were where it was at compared to mini computers. But I heard Jim Clark talk. He came to campus, and I realized I want to be in a dynamic company. I want to be in a startup. So I learned by switching from physics to do what I love, which is programming, and then I learned, seeing Clark in particular was inspiring to me in many ways, to go into industry, to go where the action was. It was more there than it was in academia, I thought.
You finally landed at Netscape, and that was a huge change in terms of the kind of company you were working at. This was a really raw startup.
Yes, it was a rocket. It was crazy. It was April of 1995, pre-IPO, feeling that we were in a little Yugo with a giant monster truck called Microsoft bearing down on us, and we had to go fast, and we did. They wanted me to do something very specific, which I went there and did. It's not often you can say that in your career. I went there to do the scripting language, which became JavaScript.
So you were brought in to do JavaScript, and what was the need that they saw there in terms of, there was the first browser, the Mosaic browser, and so why a JavaScript?
Well, Mosaic had to be taken over by Netscape, which made e-commerce safe with secure sockets layer, stuff we take for granted now, HTTPS. But once Netscape 1 was out, it was clear that there was a platform we could build on the browser, on your local machine, that could have programming language support. It could have better graphics. It could do not just text and hypertext, but really advanced things. Stuff, again, we take for granted now with Web 2.0. Back then, it was not there. And Java was just coming out. So there was this little race inside Netscape between JavaScript, which was really just me with Andreessen totally getting it, doing this scripting language for the masses, where Java was this more advanced programming language for the experts. And some people said, why have two? Why not just have Java? And the answer was obvious. It's because the masses deserve a programming language, because there are many web designers or graphic designers who learn a little programming, who learned a little BASIC back in the 70s on their Apple II. And they can make the switch into programming with JavaScript easily. They can buy by the
So this was like the Visual Basic for the browser.
For the web, yeah. That was it. And Andreessen got it. Bill Joy at Sun got it, which is how we got the name. I don't know if everybody else at Sun liked it, but Bill got it.
Why call it JavaScript if it's really nothing to do with Java?
It was this marketing scam. And what I say Bill Joy got was what Mark and I were advancing, which is that there should be a complementary Visual Basic language to the C++ for the web. So Java is more like C++ than it's like BASIC. It's more advanced, and you have to run a compiler, and you have to write some declarations around your code. JavaScript, you just write little snippets. You don't even have to declare your variables. rules. So there should be the easy thing for the masses, and it can be used as glue around the more advanced component language. That was the vision that I think everybody got. That's why the name, even though it's a marketing scam, stuck.
And then it took you, what, months and months to create it, or was this on web time?
It was a rush job. Everything at Netscape was frantic then because we knew Microsoft was coming after us. I think they tried to buy Netscape in late '94 for too little money, and Clark sent them packing, and we all felt them breathing down our neck. And we knew that if we got on first, if we had that first mover advantage, we would succeed. And I also realized, like I said, that I wanted to do something that touched a lot of users. So even when Netscape 2 was in beta at the end of 1995, when we introduced LiveScript, it wasn't yet renamed, immediately people were staking their livelihoods on it. I got mail from contractors saying, I can't get my demo working. I can't get the gig if it doesn't work. Can you help me with a workaround? And I would give them a workaround after scratching my head, because I knew that code, it was secret, not open source, but I could tell them how to work around it. And they'd say, you saved my job. So obviously it had value.
Just to back up a little bit,
Sure.
What was it like during that period where Bill Gates had written that note and woken up and decided that the web was something for real and they had to address it? And
Right.
The
internet tidal wave or internet, I can't remember what he used as a metaphor. It was a combination of feeling doomed and also thinking that we still had enough market share to really make a difference. So those of us working on the browser were still well motivated. I have to say Netscape used its IPO mad money to buy a bunch of companies and try many different things. None of them really worked. They went into enterprise groupware, and that was a big distraction and a loss of focus from the browser. So even though those of us who were still trying to make a better browser and make JavaScript better were still plugging away, as 95, 96, 97 were on, we weren't making a better browser. And I have to say, Microsoft did a better browser, at least on Windows, with IE4.
Now, you've characterized at one time JavaScript as the Rodney Dangerfield of programming. And Rodney Dangerfield is a late comedian who used to tell jokes for an older generation.
Yes.
So why do you make that characterization?
Oh, doesn't anybody know Rodney? He's no longer with us, but he used to talk about getting no respect. That was his big joke. He'd say, yeah, I get no respect, I tell you. And JavaScript got no respect because it was being abused by people to do gratuitous effects in your web page and dancing bears and annoying little things in your status bar. But it also had power to do a lot of the things that we now take for granted in the Web 2.0 application world.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit. Firefox 3, Beta 1 is out now. And how has that really changed the game in the sense of what a browser is capable of today?
I think the main thing about Firefox 3 is we're making it use memory better, we're making it faster, we're making its add-on support be even easier to use, we're making its searching and bookmarking really nice so that when you type into the main bar, which is the only bar you need to think about now instead of that search box, you can do searches, you can search your own history, your own bookmarks, and it tends to find exactly what you're looking for. Once you use it, you'll be hooked. So we're trying to do a better browser still, and that's, I think, how we had success with Firefox.
Now, Microsoft still has about 85% share of market. I think Firefox is at 15, and then there's Safari and other things in there, and Opera. You know, how do you really plan to compete? Because I know it sounds like you're still very competitive and yet want to be compatible to some degree as well.
It's challenging. We are moving faster than Microsoft. There's no question. Bill Gates said something at the Mix 06 conference about coming out every 9 to 12 months, but they haven't done it, whereas we have. And we are ahead of 15% in worldwide share. We're quoting 20, but if you look at some countries, it's a lot higher, like Germany, it's 30. And you go to Germany and you hear the press there say, hey, now that you've beaten Microsoft, what's next? And it's a little bit, you know, getting ahead of ourselves.
Country by country.
Country by country. But there is something to that. We want to pay attention to locale. We have volunteer localization teams making the translations the best, and we have good defaults for searching and so on.
You're open source, you're nonprofit, small organization, make some decent revenue through the ads. I think, what is it, $60 million a year, something like that. But you know, what motivates you in a nonprofit, in a non-capitalist oriented organization to go out and fight that fight?
It's really, in some ways, the same personal motivation that led me to go do what I love and then try to touch users instead of being stuck in an ivory tower. The web was stuck either in an ivory tower where XML was going to save us, or in a monopoly condition where IE was totally stagnated and allowed to become a vector for security holes and malware. And that's wrong. The web should keep improving year by year. Our hardware keeps getting better. Our graphics cards are insanely good thanks to games. But the web has been held back. And Mozilla is a unique opportunity to move it forward quickly. Because it's open source, because we partner with anybody. We'll work with Apple and Opera to advance the web standards. We'll work with Adobe, even though some people don't like them because they do Flash and other things that are considered proprietary. But they have a more open orientation, and they're willing to work with us on individual battlefronts. So to me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to try to advance the web in an open way that involves everybody and doesn't lock it into one vendor.
And finally, what's your take on this movement of rich internet application programming languages such as Adobe's Air and Flash, as well as Microsoft's Silverlight? I mean, we're seeing people building browsers out of those new code bases.
I've always thought that the browser is the rich internet application platform, and I've yet to be proven wrong decisively. In order to really advance these other RIAs, I think the browser has to be stagnated a bit. And every time a new Firefox or Safari comes out, or somebody does something clever like Google Gears, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails of the proprietary RIAs, in my opinion. They look a little too locked into one vendor. They look a little too thin compared to what browsers can do. So if next year browsers can do 2D graphics and they can do offline application support, which we're working on with the working group and then Firefox, if they can do these other things that you are being told now you can only do through Silverlight or Air, why wouldn't you use the open web standards and reach more people? Why wouldn't you use the lighter weight tools that aren't locked into one vendor?
Well, Brendan, thanks very much for speaking with me.
You're welcome.
I've been speaking with Brendan Eich, who is the CTO of Mozilla Corp and a board member of the Mozilla Foundation. For Super Techies, I'm Dan Farber. Thanks for watching.